Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.
We're so honored to have on the show a founding member of the Guess Who, an incredible drummer and percussionist, including being in the Canadian Music Hall of Fame. Gary Peterson. Gary, thanks for coming on the show.
It's a great honor and pleasure to be with you here, Eric.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Guess Who, I think as we were talking, Gary, before we started the interview, you've been with the Guess Who for 62 years. And that actually came out of the band originally, Al and the Silvertones, right?
Yeah, that was the very first iteration of the band. And Randy Bachman was in the band. Randy and I had a band called the Velvetones, and our big opposing competition in Winnipeg was the Silvertones, and they stole Randy, and then we had no Velvetones. And then a week later, Randy said, "The drummer's no good. Come and listen to this guy." And so that's really the short story of how we both joined that band, which had Jim Cale in it, which meant that that's 3/4 of the final Guess Who.
Well, and so many hit songs with the Guess Who, and I know you guys are on a massive tour right now, but I want to bring up the new album, which the songs sound incredible. The artwork is awesome. It is Plein D'Amour. And, listening to the songs, it's reminiscent of some of the vintage Guess Who, but also to me, Gary, and you can speak to this better, it seems like the Guess Who never really fit into one box or another. You guys could pull off the more folky stuff. You could pull off the pop stuff, but also you guys had kind of the rock, almost hard rock side with some of your songs.
Well, most people from that era only listened to the hits. They didn't go and listen to the 14 albums that we had. Right. And if you listen to the albums, the album cuts, some of them were only ever played in the studio. They were never played on stage. However, there's a jazz cut on every tune, on every album. There's a country tune on every album. There's all kinds of musical influences that the band had, but for some reason, this band was purely a pop band, which people only remember for the singles.
Right. And I'm a fan, Gary, obviously, of a lot of the deeper tracks with the Guess Who. And certainly the band is known for the hits like, American Woman, and like I love Undun. There's so many great songs that you guys have in your catalog that a lot of people only know your singles. I remember Clap for the Wolfman. And I mean, what a fun song when that hit the radio.
Yeah, and it's funny that we got to have him in the studio recording on the record, and then actually went and did a whole tour with us where he would introduce the band at the beginning of the show and then come on and do the song actually live with us. So that was
actually had the Wolfman Jack, because
he was traveling with us. Yeah,
that had to be some crazy times, Gary.
Oh yeah.
Thinking of another song though, it's like, the story behind No Sugar Tonight.
Yeah.
And that's once again kind of an interesting backstory on that song, Gary.
Well, that was two songs. Randy had No Sugar Tonight, and Burton had the other part of it. And it was a choice of, well, which one do we do? And of course, writers are always going to fight to get their song on an album, because that writing means and publishing means money.
Right.
So what ended up happening is we put the two of them together.
Yeah.
And that way we didn't have to choose New Mother Nature or No Sugar Tonight. It just became one. And interestingly enough, they fit together to the point where we could actually, at one point in the song, have one superimposed over the other lyrically and change the words back and forth. So,
well, I've got to ask you on this too, Gary. Once again, being with the Guess Who from the very beginning, what does it feel like to you now when you hear a song like These Eyes being played in commercials and in TV shows and in movies with so much of your material? What is that like to you when you're sitting back going, wait a minute, that's me?
Well, I don't think I look at it that way anymore. I've always been the type of person, once it's done, it's done.
Yeah.
My idea is, okay, what's next? And
Ah,
that continues today. We have the album out right now, and we're doing videos. We're doing 8 videos from Plein D'Amour. There'll be 8 by the time we're finished, 1 for every song on the album. But we're working on the next album right now.
well, you know, in Plein D'Amour, I wanted to bring this up. Listening to the tracks once again, kind of like the Guess Who's previous albums, to where you really have, you know, you have some organic. You've got like piano, you've got mandolin, you've got all these different instruments, but it all sounds like the Guess Who, and the musicianship and the vocals and everything, Gary, just sound great. And of course, the drums.
Well, the drums are a necessary evil, you know.
Gotta have it.
Gotta have it. It's the primal beat within all of us. So.
Mm-hmm. How did this new
And
album come together? Because I know that you recorded it in Ontario, Canada, right?
yeah, Derek lives about, I guess, 85 miles north of Toronto, and Villa Sound is also up there in a little village called Singhamton, and he had been in the studio with his wife Sass a few times, and so we decided to go there. I had no idea what this was going to be like, but it worked out very well, because we kind of for 8 days immersed ourselves in nothing but the album, and we ate in the house that the studio's in. We had meals. Sass was with her daughter was bringing us stuff in there to, and so we kind of, it kind of went back to the old school where you all lived in one house and that kind of thing. Pretty interesting to do it that way, and I think we found maybe something we'd lost, you know, and recaptured the way we did things in the old days.
You mentioned that, Gary, to where, you know, going back and doing it, you know, living there for that time, it does remind me, you know, of, you know, the Guess Who, you know, how you guys used to record back in the early days of the band.
Yeah, well, that's the studio experience. And I mean, the house actually had bedrooms, but we stayed in a hotel. However, we spent the majority of the day, even to the point where when we were cutting one day, we went out in the backyard and did the video for The King right on the lawn in the backyard. That's done right there at the studio.
Wow. And what a great song The King is also.
Yeah, it's much different for the band in a way. I think the Guess Who did have songs like that moved from one kind of music to another. So it's kind of an extension in a way, but this is more slick and more thought out and more, well, more put together deliberately than what we did in the past. I'd say this is a next step to what we did before. And I never thought I would be playing a song like that on stage with this band. And there's sometimes at night when we started and I go, wow, this is incredible, because we have all the technology to be able to create that song now, which, you know, we really didn't in the days of the original recordings of the Guess Who. So, I mean, for me to have that feeling at 78 years old, I can't ask for anything more, you know, and hopefully we continue as long as I can do this, creating more and more new material. That's really what every version of the band, I always encouraged, let's do an album, let's do music, let's do new music, because that's really the lifeblood of a musician is creating new material.
Well, you know, I got to bring this up too. Besides the incredible songs within this album, and I know it's being offered on splatter vinyl and I think smoky vinyl, and it's like, you know, you've got 2 different, you know, limited editions, but you also have some incredible artwork on here. So when I pull up the artwork, you know, when I was listening to the songs, Gary, it's like going, and this is a world-renowned artist that you guys used for this album cover.
Yeah, and he's, you know, he's world class. and he decided he liked the album, and decided that he would love to do the album cover, and that so it kind of, again, this was a project that kind of fatefully came together all at once, and it was great.
Having you as a founding member from the very beginning of the Guess Who, and then having, you know, the other musicians that you've involved, you're able to keep that original core feeling and sound, which I feel that, you know, Plein D'Amour has, but then also the album feels very fresh and new.
With all the changes in this band, there's one common thread. And I'll let you decide who that is.
That is you,
and,
obviously.
And what I see is, when you're making a formula, sometimes you need a catalyst to get all the ingredients to marry.
Right.
And I kind of think that's what my role has been through the 50 or 60 years that the band has been in existence. I'm that catalyst.
Well, you know, speaking of catalyst, I've got to bring this up to brag on you, Gary. You played your first professional gig as a drummer at 4 years old, and then at 6, you played with Peggy Lee. So
I was actually 5 years old, and it was 1950, and that would have been a show at the Chicago Theater on State Street in Chicago. There's a lot of negativity about this not being the original band, and our mission and what we're trying to do is, there's been many great singers and songwriters and musicians pass through this band, and every single one, not just 2 people, every single one contributed in a measure to the success of this band. Definitely. We're not trying to make anybody forget that. We're celebrating that, but also trying to create new music to add to that legendary repertoire that we play every night. You know, this is a great celebration of many people who contributed.
Well, so many hits. I mean, I think you've had 14 number one, 14 top 40 hits. And, you know, we were talking about the many albums, and, you know, your music is used across all platforms, whether it be for TV shows, film, commercials, you name it. And you are, Gary, the common thread, you know, that has always been with the Guess Who. And I mean, we had bands that everybody knows.
We had 2 reunions, one in the 80s and one from 1999 to 2003. And so there was every opportunity for the original members of the band to stay together. That didn't happen. And so you have to, those people that are disappointed, and I'm disappointed in some ways that couldn't have happened, but I'm still here.
Right.
And the others aren't.
Right.
You have to ask the question, why?
Well, and I think also people need to take a listen to the new music, Gary, because Plein D'Amour.
Well, again, that's the key that we are. I think musicians innately have this creative juice flowing in them, and it seems that a lot of the older bands, they don't have the opportunity, or there's no place for their new music if they do try to create it.
Right.
We've decided that this is what we want to do, and we will do it whatever it takes. And as I said, we're working on the new album right now. We're putting it all together. This one hasn't even finished yet, but that's just the way we feel, you know.
Well, and you're going to have videos to go with every song, and all of the songs on here I think are incredible. Certainly, probably my favorite is Plein D'Amour, you know, the final track on the album, and you're going to have it in 2 different vinyls. People can listen to it digital, however they like. I still prefer vinyl. I think I still have some of the original, the Guess Who vinyl at my house, you know. So next time I see you, I might have to bring that to you and show you and get you to sign it. It's like, but the music is still incredible, and that you and the band are creating new current music like you are with this album is a testament in keeping rock and roll alive.
Yeah, and I think me knowing all the people that have been in the band, I've said this before, we all grew up listening to the same. I mean, whether it's Burton Cummings, Randy Bachman, Kurt Winter, Greg Lescue, Dominique Troiano, Bill Wallace, Donnie McDougall, and the band, the guys in this band now, Michael Stertone, Derek Sharp, we all grew up listening, and we're knocked out by Queen and the Beatles and the Stones and all of the greatest artists, Beach Boys, Elvis, Little Richard. This is our roots. So there's also a commonality there between all the members that have existed in this band. And I'm the one that is here to testify to that.
Right. Because
I know them all.
And carry on that legacy, Gary. Well,
I mean, I'm not doing it by myself. As I said, we have great talents, and Derek surely is one of those great talents, as were Randy and Burton, and he's cut from the same cloth in my experience of who he is as a musician and songwriter. So
I want to make sure too, Gary, that for our viewers, for the website, for social media, to be able to catch the Guess Who live, and also keep up with all the limited edition vinyl and everything else for Plein D'Amour, where should our viewers go, Gary?
Well, theguesswho.com is always a good place to start. We have our Facebook, we have our all of the media out there is connected together. And if you can't find this stuff, I don't know. A lot of, I mean, some of our fans are older and are not particularly on social media as much as younger people, but I mean, they certainly know that theguesswho.com, which is a website that's old already, that will give you tour dates. It'll give you, if you're interested in merchandise, if you're interested in records, that will, or CDs, it'll give you the starting point. And also on that website, it will say tour. So that means you can always find out where we are and when we're going to be close to where you are.
Right. Well, and I got to bring this up, Gary. I think also with the album cover, might be a great idea to have that on T-shirts and posters. Maybe I think it could be popular. It certainly gives a nod to a lot of the big '70s rock bands, such as the Guess Who. And I think people are going to really embrace this album cover too.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a good package, but that's not for me to say. I think it is, but that's for the people out there to at least listen to it, and then make your decision based on. Some people will like it, some people won't, and that's great. That's why we have a world that is diverse.
Well, and I'm of the opinion that everybody's going to love this new album, which has so many great songs on it, which mixes well with all the hits that the Guess Who has done. Plein D'Amour, there's going to be music videos rolling out too. Gary Peterson, thank you so much for coming on our show.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you to all our great fans from all the different eras of this band.
Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.